357 Hemp Logistics provides fully insured transportation and supply chain management solutions for the hemp industry. From seed to store, hemp is never just another commodity to us. With best-in-class technology and a customer portal, allows you to have 24/7 real-time visibility with our track and trace technology. Secure your hemp logistics partner for both domestic and international shipping by visiting our website at www.357company.com or call us at 844-357-SHIP.
We are live with the iHemp Hour. My name is Dave Craybill. I'm with iHemp Michigan. iHemp Michigan's mission is to educate, inform, and promote the research, development, and cultivation of industrial hemp here in Michigan. iHemp Michigan advocates for wellness in people and the planet through hemp. And we have some great guests lined up today. I'm excited to be here. Mike Brennan, do you have some news to kick us off?
Yeah, my publication, Michigan Marijuana Report, clearly focuses on the cannabis side of the industry. But one of the things that happened this week, there's a lot of communities that have opted out of offering adult use recreational cannabis. But one of them that is no longer opting out is Detroit. Our biggest community. On Monday, the city council passed a resolution to begin to offer that. And it'll also include consumption lounges. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Amsterdam and see how they do it. It's something along those lines. So some progress there. The other thing is there's some projections just for the cannabis industry in Michigan next year. They think it's going to be $1 billion industry. So it's really taken off. I've looked at the MRA license applications. There's 300 or 400 in the works. Through this, going through various stages of getting all their due diligence done. And so then we've also I have a show on Wednesdays, 420 Post, hence the thing behind me here, where we've talked to some experts who also think, a year or two out, we're going to have a big shakeout because there isn't going to be that, because we could be up to 600 or 700 provisioning centers, and that's way too many, even for our state. And it could be dropped back down as what the big multi-state operators will be coming in, and other companies will be coming in to buy the mom and pop cannabis provisioning centers that are very small. But I mean, that's pretty much typical of any industry as it matures. And one would expect that particularly with the money involved in Michigan. We're the number 2 state right now, excuse me, in cannabis sales behind California. And we only have 1/4 of California's population. So big news on that area for a lot of people. Just grow cannabis indoors in a very controlled facility because they don't want cross-pollination. It's not really an outdoor plant typically. But I think if iHemp members are taking a look at maybe getting into that space, certainly there's a lot of opportunity right now. I don't know how many more years there's going to be this opportunity to be in the ground floor level like we have today. So that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah. What any news on as far as tax revenues and how, I got to believe it's got to help the city of Detroit, tax wise, and, bring in some revenue.
Yeah, it's a little early on the tax stuff. I have to check with the MRA, Marijuana Regulatory Agency, to see what the latest numbers are. But they were doing pretty good with taxes. They were harvesting about $10 million a month. So I mean, it's good numbers. Whether it's going to be in the $500 or $600 million range that they were saying way back when, I don't know if it's going to get that high. You'd have to be selling several $1 billion worth of marijuana to get tax revenues in that neighborhood. But certainly a lot of communities are taking a serious look at opting in because of that, because they get a share of the tax revenue. And as we all know right now with the pandemic, businesses are down. The various communities are stressed with their budgets because they're not getting that tax revenue flowing in because, people aren't making sales, businesses are closing, all sorts of things. So yeah, I think potentially it could really help Detroit. And of course, as I mentioned previous on one of the other shows I was on, the city of Detroit is very interested in growing hemp in a lot of the vacant land. They have 37,000 parcels that are vacant. Part of that would be for remediation because those houses have been there forever and all sorts of gunk is in the ground. But part of it is they were interested in maybe getting into the manufacturing element where processing it and we talked about having a textile industry in the state and that sort of thing. this would be a really good time to have that conversation. So I can connect you guys to the city of Detroit if you want to open that up. So
Yeah, the fiber path would be very interesting. Excellent. All right. Anything else, Mike?
that's pretty much it.
All right. Blaine, do you have some news for us?
I always have a bunch of news, and this week has been nothing short of that again. The first thing I'm going to start out with is something that I just want people to be aware of. It is going on in Michigan, and it's a new E. coli outbreaks with links to the past romaine and salad events. So they're not sure where people are getting sick from, if it's from restaurants. It was a cluster of people that did eat at a restaurant. They didn't mention which restaurant. But it's the E. coli 0157 H7STEC illness is under investigation. And again, I mentioned that because it is affecting 8 different states, Ohio, Michigan, which is the key here, Wisconsin, Illinois, Rhode Island, Florida, and California, and Utah. So there was a cluster up here in the Midwest that are all affected by it, but the other ones are quite far apart. So I think it's going to revert back to maybe even something to do with that onions that we had earlier this year, but just something to keep an eye on, and I'll keep you informed of it as we know. But right now it's a mystery to everybody of where this is happening and why right now. The good news here, we got some really good news though this week. U.S. lawmakers say DEA rule on THC violates Farm Bill's intent. U.S. lawmakers now. So you don't think that maybe some of the requests that we've had and going up to Congress and the Hill and everybody else to try to get behind this doesn't work. It does, because here's what's happened. U.S. lawmakers have written the government's drug enforcement, DEA, urging the agency to clarify its rules for processing industrial hemp, warning the guidelines could put some producers at risk of violating the country's Controlled Substance Act. Lawmakers say a clause in the DEA rules issued in August 2020 appears to contradict the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized industrial hemp and its derivatives federally in the U.S., removing them from the country's Controlled Substance Act. The DEA rule states that cannabis-derived extract or product that exceeds the 0.3% delta-9 THC limit is a Schedule I controlled substance, even if the plant from which it was derived contained 0.3% or less delta-9 THC on a dry weight basis. When Congress passed the 2018 Farm Bill, we understood that intermediate stages of hemp processing can cause hemp extracts to temporarily exceed that 0.3% THC, which is why we define hemp based on its delta-9 THC level. Senators Ron Wyden and Jeffrey McGurkley, both of Oregon, wrote in an October 22nd letter to the drug agency. If we define hemp's THC content only on a dry weight basis, because dry weight measurements are commonly taken from the initial hemp plant and final hemp derived products, the senators wrote. DEA is ignoring the legislative intent. In a second letter, 9 lawmakers wrote to the DEA on October 20th that the agency rules implied that only process for extracting hemp may cause hemp processors to temporarily pose a controlled substance. If that is the case, the IFR seems to have ignored the clear legislative intent of the Farm Bill in making the process of hemp into extracts, derivatives, and cannabinoids subject to DEA's enforcement as a violation of the Controlled Substance Act, the lawmakers wrote. So, good work for those that sent letters in and contacted people on this. And we've got some real strong behind it, and I think we're going to get that changed eventually with the DEA for sure. So let's see. Indiana Hemp's plan got approved last week, so they're under the USDA program. Wisconsin Hemp pilot program is guaranteed for a year-long extension, so they didn't apply or didn't get approved, and they're just going to go back under the pilot program for that. Purdue Hemp Project 2019 and 2020 THC testing data. Purdue University Hemp Project has made THC testing data from 2009 and 2020 available online. The data is organized by hemp variety. So if there's a certain varieties you're looking to produce, we encourage you to take a look at this data to better understand what THC content will look like. And I don't have a link for that right here, but we'll get one up on the site, or we'll get that up there. But so if you're looking at some genetics, looks like we've got some good information here available from Purdue. Hemp at the Crossroads is now open for registration. That's going to be February 5th, 4th, and 5th. The night of the 4th is going to be a networking kind of little event. And then actually the 5th is the day, all day of activities for that. Just if you just type in Hemp at the Crossroads, it'll come up and you'll be able to get either register for the event. It's $150 early bird. And also they have a link to the hotel, which is the Embassy Suites and Conference Center right there at the airport. Midwest Hemp Council's podcast this week is going to feature Ian Lairder, CFO and General Counsel for Hemp Benchmarks. So he'll be on that today. We're urging support of the HR 8179. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. We can go to Hemp Roundtable and get information on that. The Ohio is having an Ohio Hemp Summit November 7th at the Pickaway County Fairgrounds in Circleville, Ohio. It's a one-day conference. It'll cover greenhouse operations, planting, harvesting, processing, packaging, and marketing. And they have a trade show, and you can look up that site if you want to get tickets for that, if you're going to go to that. And then also Tennessee Growers is having a farm tour that they're going to do. That's also going to be on November the 7th. It's also virtually on that day for a never before seen tour of the Optimal. This is your chance to experience over 12 acres of greenhouse in the heart of East Nashville, Tennessee. They're really well known for their African violets, and they also provide a premium CBD and CBG strains of hemp seedlings and clones. So I got my processor handler license in the mail this week, my renewal instructions. So both the grower and the renewals are out. If you haven't received them, and for some reason you need to contact MDART and find out where that is. There are some deadlines, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later in the show on that. So just be aware that those are out. And one of the requirements for the new program is going to be getting your fingerprints done by the FBI. So as I said last week, I was going to try to get mine done, and I did. So there's a number of ways to do this, but the easiest way to do it is go through a chandler. And there's a list of channelers on the FBI website. I use Sterling Identity, and literally within minutes, this was completed for me. So I went on their site. It was $49. They gave me a QR code within seconds. You just register your name and some other information, and then they send you a QR code. And then I went down to my local UPS store in Grand Haven, 5 minutes from my house, and showed them the code. And they have a little scanning pad there. You put your fingers on, your left, your right, and then your thumbs. And literally by the time I got back home, I got my results back. Now, I've asked MDART, I sent a copy of this to MDART, and I've asked them to make sure, because one of the things it says in here is this is not provided for the purpose of licensing or employment or any other purpose in 28 CFR 20.33. And I've not done the research to figure if that's one of the requirements we have, but maybe they'll be able to answer that, or soon they can get it out if that will work. If it is, it's really just a matter of minutes, and you can get your FBI check out of the way for that. So, and Dave, I think with that, next week, Scott Colville is going to be on. He was going to talk with us today, but he's not feeling real well today. We talked a little bit about hot hemp and getting insurance for it. And there isn't a program out there. It's kind of related to a weather program, or weather insurance availability. And Scott's going to cover that with us next week. So we'll talk more about that next week. He'll have some answers for us on that.
David and I were talking about that very thing before we started. I was asking, or if there isn't insurance for that, it seems like it'd be an opportunity for some insurance company to cover it. So
Yep. And Scott will give us what he knows about this program covering that hot hemp issue. So
yeah.
And boy, I'm really excited to be able, and timely that we have this show today with Gina and Nate, that's for sure. So Dave, back to you.
All right. Well, we have Nate Kark. Nate, help me out. Legislative liaison, is that? your title?
Yeah, that's correct, Dave. Thanks.
Okay, with the Michigan. So he's between Gina's team and the politicians. Is that correct? You're the interpreter. You bring
That's
it all
it. Yeah, sometimes traffic controller, sometimes symphony conductor, but it's a lot of fun.
I don't envy you working with the politicians, but no comment, right? So
Yeah, we won't put too much pressure on you, Nate.
Yeah.
It was a friendly show, but Gina, of course, it's good to see you back again. The Hempress. So we've got lots of. You don't like that title? Becky wants it anyhow.
Everything.
Oh, I thought we were going to get her a hat that said the Hempress on it. No? Oh, okay.
So December 1, we're under the USDA. So my first question, Gina, is do you feel like we've been penalized for doing the right thing? Because I feel that we have, so, Michigan, worked hard and got the plan in place and got it approved. And now we're under the USDA rules, which is a lot more restringent, lot more restrictive than the research program. Those that didn't do the work, didn't get it in, now they're still under the research program. I feel that we were better off under the research program than the new rules. What's your thoughts, sir?
I don't know that I agree with that, Dave. So you're right. We have worked hard and long to get to the point where our plan is approved. But, truth be told, the continuing resolution, which allows states to continue to operate under the pilot programs, are not necessarily to give states more time to submit their plans. Rather, it's for them to be able to be in compliance with certain requirements of the federal rules. For example, a lot of my counterparts in other states really pushed back on the requirement for use of DEA registered laboratories. And the reason for that is because they either didn't have a DEA registered laboratory in their state, or there just weren't enough of them. Here in Michigan, MDARD's lab is DEA registered. And so that really was a non-issue for us. So, there are lots of elements, obviously.
Whoop.
Uh-oh.
Your Wi-Fi froze up.
Yep.
Okay, Nate.
Step in, Nate.
So interpret, Nate. Yes,
Well, she'll be right back. I think, what Gina's going for here is that, we were on a track to bring this to the next level here in Michigan. And, I think we needed to just continue our efforts to do so, work with our legislative partners and, see that we can move forward with what the USDA was working towards on this. And, this is something that we're well aware of is going to continue to evolve for some time to come. And, I don't necessarily want to take words out of Gina's mouth here, but, I think in a certain respect, it gives us an edge to be on that next level under the USDA.
Okay.
I think she's trying to log back in. She just dropped out there.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be back.
Hey, what do you see on the future here, since this will be your wheelhouse? What do you see in the future for possible legislation or possible working with our state representatives to keep enhancing the hemp program? What do you see there?
Yeah, well, there's certainly no shortage of things to be looking at there. It's no mystery that we're approaching and really just on a cusp, being less than a week away from a major election that could have implications on both the state and the federal side of things. And, for example, here in Michigan, the entire House of Representatives is running for re-election right now, which means that I don't think we're going to have 110 new faces to be working with, but certainly there may be some new faces to be working with. So it's going to be learning what's on their minds and how they see the state shaping up with many issues, including hemp. I can say we're very fortunate to have great legislative partners right now, one of which is Senator Lowers, who's been highly instrumental in spearheading any hemp-related legislative initiatives. But, the remainder of the legislature has been robustly supportive of the hemp industry here in Michigan. I can say the two bills that we put through the legislature regarding hemp this last year passed unanimously. There's been a great deal of curiosity regarding hemp. And as far as next steps and where this could lead us in the future, I think it really just means we've got a lot of opportunities to educate and make sure that legislators have the tools they need to make informed decisions on hemp. Certainly for us, we overcame that first hurdle of aligning with the USDA, submitting a state plan and getting that approved through the legislature. And that was on the grower side. So now we need to turn to some broader industry topics such as processors and trying to figure out how to evolve hemp for the next stages, which, unlike what we saw with the USDA with their interim final rule, there's not a whole lot of federal guidance, if any, as far as, some of these broader industry subjects. So those are certainly going to be the next things to come.
Can I ask a quick question, Nate? One of the things Dave and I were chatting about before we started was early this year, a lot of people were saying a lot of farmers were going to come into this space and grow hemp in lieu of other crops. Are you seeing any of that, any big movement in that area, or are people still kind of a little skittish about doing that?
That's probably a question better suited for Gina. Last I heard, the amount of licenses that we're looking at are probably pretty similar compared to the pilot program. Growers that I've spoken with, and like I said, Gina's probably spoken with a lot more than I have. I tend to interact more with legislators, but it sounds like there's still the enthusiasm there. And I can say that from a legislative perspective, that enthusiasm's still there as well. I think people realize that this is a crop and a resource that we are yet to fully implement. And really, there's just a lot of potential there.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any THC concerns because, this is not what it's about. I mean, as Dave and Blaine will point out, 20,000 products can be made out of hemp. And gosh, we're a great manufacturing state. And why don't we get ag and manufacturing together to make some of these products, right?
Yeah, and that's, again, just where that education component can come in, because one of my roles as a legislative liaison for the department is working with legislators and making sure that they've got their tools, that they have the information, because they go back to their districts and they talk to their constituents. And, you guys probably run into this too, but it sounds like there's at least a few people in the state that don't realize that there is a difference between hemp and marijuana. And, that's one of those just continuing things that we need to be working on so that people know what's going on and what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
Dave, did you see the message from Brad about Gina can't get back in for some reason into Zoom?
Send her a new link, Dave.
All right.
We'll let Dave work on that issue and we'll come back to Nate then. So.
Yeah, I love talking with you guys.
Yeah, well, you're always a good one to talk to. So I got a question from one of our attendees here. At this point, is there any board, any organization besides iHemp and that kind of thing that really is, that the state is recognizing as a hemp group or whatever? I don't want to say group, more as a go-to kind of thing.
Well, I think, there's groups that certainly have interests in hemp, any of your typical agricultural groups that are out there. But as far as one that specifically focuses on the area, no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Let me also ask Nate, since you deal with the politicians, is there any appetite on the part of the politicians to come up with the funding that would be needed to build out the hemp infrastructure for processing and things like that? Because, for instance, you've got to have a lot of equipment in place in order to move forward in that area. Are there any discussions along those lines?
Yeah, I think it's been more theoretical at this point as far as, what does the industry need? And, I would encourage you folks, anyone on this call right now, just, interact with your legislators and let them know what you need as an industry, because, we do some education as far as our perspective at the Department of Agriculture, but, certainly that frontline perspective is one thing that those legislators can use. And that'll certainly help them out a lot. I mean, it's just making sure that they're familiar with what's going on in the industry. Like I said, hemp is something that's still new to a lot of the legislative folks that we work with. There's that curiosity with it. And with that, I think, any input and feedback will be well received.
Yeah, because ag, I think, remains the number 3 industry in the state. You got autos, you got tourism, and then right now, I don't think tourism is doing all that well. So probably ag's number 2 right now behind manufacturing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to verify where it sits right at the moment, especially with that tourism component you just mentioned, Mike. But, it's no question, agriculture is a massive industry. And we've got national and international connections and capabilities here. So it's just one more thing that we need to showcase.
So are we having any luck with Gina?
No, not yet. I resent the link, but she must be having internet issues.
Jen was having that same problem. Maybe try to send it to Jen too and see if
Well, Jen's coming. Jen's in. She's fine.
she okay now. Mhm. So Nate, what's going to be some of the good ways for people to contact their representatives in Michigan here and let them know things they may need, things that they want to see happen in this sector?
Sure. Yeah, it starts with first step of just figuring out who your legislators are. You know, one part of my job is I do realize that I'm probably, hopefully at least anyway, more tied in with a lot of folks out there with their legislators. So sometimes I take that for granted that some people don't think that their legislators are accessible people, but they are people, they do respond. And how you can figure out who they are is just a quick Google search. Find my state legislator. There's a number of resources out there that'll help pinpoint you in the right direction. Sometimes it's by address, sometimes it's by zip code, and a lot of those resources online point you in the right direction with email, phone number, just any way that you want to get a hold of them. I mean, they might not get back to you right away all the time. I think all offices do things a little bit differently, but you know, certainly they are looking forward to having discussions on this.
All right, thanks, Nate.
Welcome back, Gina.
Okay, hey there.
Well, thank you. I have no idea what happened. I'll blame it on Norman back here.
That's probably what it was. So
Okay, so can you guys hear, everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have no idea what was the last word that fell out of my mouth before all of that happened. So maybe I'll just sort of start my presentation. I don't remember where I was with your question, Dave, but bottom line, I believe here in Michigan, we're ready to go. And so we're going to implement this, some new changes coming December 1st. And the reason that we selected that date was because it aligns well with our licensing year that runs December 1 through November 30th. So that will mean several changes. And what I'd like to do today is sort of present what those changes are in a manner that, you know, as if a person were either applying initially to become a registered grower or renewing all the way to the very end when they're harvesting their hemp. So I'm going to begin with basically completion of the grower application. As you've always had to do, you can apply as either an individual or a business. That's always been the case. You provide your full name, date of birth, mailing address, telephone number, and a valid email address. I'm always going to use this opportunity to harp on everybody to make sure you're providing a monitored email address that you're paying attention to, because that is the way that we're communicating with you if you have deficiencies in your application, or if we have regulatory updates or anything that we need to share with you. So please remember to check your email. As always, you provide your total acreage of your or your greenhouse or any other indoor square footage where you're growing. You provide your GPS coordinates and a map. What's new this year is that you also have to provide the legal description of the area that you're going to be growing your hemp on or in. Now, this is information that's typically found on a property deed or maybe in a plat map. So it's easy to find, but recognize that that's going to be a new piece of information that you'll have to provide on your application. Another thing that the law talks about as it relates to the areas that you're growing is that the law has always said that you have to be growing hemp in an area that you either own or that you are in complete control of. That's been in the law from the very beginning. But what we did is clarify what complete control means. And basically that means is that you have to be solely responsible for all of the hemp growing activities at that location. Another new component in the licensing, in our law, and as part of licensing, is that you are not able to grow hemp in a dwelling. Okay, so the word dwelling is not defined in the law, but just realize that the intent here is for growers to avoid having to have an MDARD inspector come into your home or come into your primary residence to conduct an inspection.
That wouldn't include like a greenhouse. That would be separate, right?
Correct. That would be separate. Or even if you have a, let's just say that there's a farmstead that has a home on it, but it's not being lived in. It's not anybody's primary residence where they're living. You can grow hemp in there. The intent is that inspectors don't want to go into private residences any more than you want them in there. So that's the reason for that. Another component of license remains the criminal history report for the applicant. And if the applicant is not an individual, the criminal history report for all key participants. I'll define that in a minute. So what's different, as Blaine mentioned earlier, is that because of the interim final rules, we have to be able to identify felony drug convictions that are on somebody's record that have not necessarily occurred in Michigan, but anywhere. And so the iChat tool that you guys are all used to using only provides Michigan felony data, misdemeanor and felony data. So therefore, we need to use this FBI fingerprint-based background check tool. So half an hour before the phone call, Blaine, I talked to Jamaica Henderson from USDA about that thing that you see on the FBI's website about it not being intended for employment or licensing purposes. I asked her about that. She said it's the perfect case of, federal management saying that you're mandated to use this tool. And then at the lower level, there's this weird, disclaimer there. So the FBI tool that Blaine mentioned that he used is the one that USDA uses for the programs that they are administering. And that is the one that we're going to use here in Michigan. So basically at this point, all I can say is disregard that notation that says that it's only intended, that it's not intended for employment or licensing purposes.
Let me ask you if I may, now on the felony thing, is that just for drug busts? If someone has a felony not related to drugs, can they still work in the industry or not?
They can. It's felony drug convictions, only related to drug convictions. So, you have to worry about all those other things that maybe you did. Okay, so I mentioned the word key participant, and so that's sort of new terminology in the law, but it's not that different than what we were already doing. You guys have been providing background checks if there are other business owners, if there are people that own in excess of 10% equity or stock in the business. So basically a key participant is defined in the law as either, if it's a sole proprietorship, it's a sole proprietor. If it's a partnership, it's the partner. If it's a corporation, then it's any individual that has executive managerial control, such as a CEO or CFO, somebody that has decision-making in the company. So that's new this year. Last part of the license process, the application process, is paying the applicable fee, which in 2019 and 2020 was $100. Beginning for the 2021 season, it is now $1,250. So that fee allows a grower to grow, harvest, dry, store, and sell their harvest to a licensed hemp processor. You may recall in 2019 and 2020, based on language in the law, you were also required to get that processor handler license to sell your harvest. We've corrected that, and now you don't need that additional license to simply sell your harvest to a processor. So, I'll throw a caveat out there that if a grower intends to use a processor to process the hemp into a certain form that the grower then gets back and that they will then sell, that kicks you into that processor handler requirement. So just keep that in mind. The fee and the licenses and the fees required are based on your activities. And so if you're simply offering your harvest to a processor, the $1,250 will allow you to do that. So I know that I know there's probably a lot of questions about that increase. I've gotten a few emails about it. The simplest explanation that I can share with all of you is that the hemp program needs to be self-supporting. Bottom line, it's that simple. And so this means that the participants of the program must be solely responsible for supporting its operation through what we call user fees or restricted revenue. A lot of programs in state government have the luxury of receiving general fund dollars, taxpayer dollars, or federal dollars through cooperative agreements or grants. That's not the case with the hemp program. There are no federal dollars and there are no general fund dollars to support this program. And truth be told, you don't want those because they, as soon as you get them, you're always vulnerable to losing them, to losing general fund dollars. And then that means cuts in the program. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is that, absent sufficient resources to run this program, we would not have gotten an approved plan and the federal government would run it in the state. And for any of you that are curious, this program, once it's fully operational, will we'll have 5 staff assigned to it. That'll be a program specialist who will basically do what I'm doing, after I leave my position. 2 field staff, a lab technician who is one of the individuals who runs the samples, a half of a central licensing technician, which is the person that generates the licenses, that's Denise, and then a half of a support staff person to assist with compliance assistance, to answer questions, to help schedule sample collection, lots of different tasks. So, I don't know how to explain it any more than that. Like it or not, state employees receive a paycheck, we get health benefits, there are costs for the equipment that we use, the cars that we drive, and all of those costs need to be covered by the fees that the program generates. So that's probably enough said regarding fee increases. So I'm going to move on to the next step. Your grower registration is going to either be approved or denied. The only reason that it would be denied would be, number one, if your application is incomplete. And if that's the case, Denise is going to be emailing you back and forth. Check your email. If you're under the age of 18, you're going to get denied. If your growing location is not in Michigan, we're not going to issue a grower registration. If you've got unpaid fees, we will not be able to issue your grower registration. And an example of that would be if you have outstanding laboratory fees. If you've had your registration revoked for whatever reason, some sort of violation, we would basically deny that registration. And if you get if you have three, what is it? Oh, hang on, I lost my thought here. If your license is revoked, you basically are unable to participate in the program for 3 years. Excuse me, 5 years. And then the last thing, obviously, is the drug conviction. If you or a key participant has a felony drug conviction on your records, that would be another reason for denial. There is one exception, and this is what I missed the first time I submitted our hemp plan, and that is if you have a felony drug conviction that occurred from February 7th of 2014 to December 20th of 2018. If that felony conviction happened anytime in that little window of time, and you're a participant of a pilot program in any state, would have had to have been some other state other than Michigan, then you would be exempt from that felony conviction. That's the requirement of the feds. Okay, I'm going to move on now to, so your application, let's say, has been approved. You're good to go. There are certain grower responsibilities that you need to be aware of. Number one, as always, you need to allow access by either department staff or law enforcement. Number two, upon request, you need to present a copy of your grower registration. That's kind of a no-brainer. I just encourage everybody to be as transparent as possible about what you're doing. That transparency then, leads to less problems. Let's just put it that way. Number 3, and this is new, you need to report your acreage directly to USDA Farm Service Agency. So that's a new requirement, and they're going to be looking for basically the same growing location information that you provided on your application, including the acreage that you intend to plant. We're going to be providing some instructions on how you do that, but basically it will be as simple as either visiting a local FSA office or probably even doing it online. You still have to post your signage. We did include language in the law that clarifies that the sign must be a minimum of 8 by 10, needs to be clearly legible, needs to be weather resistant. Okay, so there's also some record keeping requirements that are new for growers. And number 1, we want you to keep track of where you're getting your propagative material, where you're getting your seeds, or where you're getting your clones. That will help us if we need to do any sort of an investigation regarding problems with certain varieties of seed or clones. You need to keep records of the varieties that you're planting. You need to provide evidence or keep records that you've submitted the information that you're required to submit to USDA, what I just covered. So if you are able to sort of print off an email confirmation or get some proof from the office that you're visiting, just somehow keep that in your records so that we, if we come to do an inspection, we know that you've met that requirement of law. And then lastly, you just have to keep some records of any hemp that you sell. And those things are identified in the law: name of the purchaser who's buying it from you, evidence that that purchaser is authorized to receive it, translation, make sure you're selling it to a licensed processor handler, the weight of the hemp purchased, the sale price, the date, and your certificate of analysis showing that it was compliant.
Let me stop you. On the processor, do they have to show you the certificate? Do they go online to the state and look up the record? How do they do that?
For the
if you're going to sell your crop to a processor and you got to make sure he's licensed, how does he or she prove they're licensed?
Ask them for a copy of it. That's always the simplest, to simply ask to see a copy of that license. They can always call us if they need that verification as well, but it's just it's obviously a good business practice to make sure you're dealing with others in the industry that have the proper licensure.
Sure.
Site modification form, no changes there. If you're making any changes to your growing areas, then you need to submit that site modification form. Okay, moving now to, so you've gotten your grower registration, you understand what your responsibilities are. Let's talk now about sampling. So beginning December 1st, growers are no longer going to be able to submit their own samples. That's probably the biggest change that all of you will recognize come the next growing season. So the way it's going to have to work has not been completely fleshed out yet, but certainly will be in advance of the busy sampling season. It will also be for anybody who's growing indoors, the greenhouse growers out there will get information to you very quickly so that come December.
Stand by. Could just be
Looks
a
like we
little
lost
blip
Gina
here,
again.
so.
Another translation, don't wait until the day before you need your samples taken to call us. You need to be aware of this time frame requirement, and that's so that we can get there in time before your harvest and get that sample collected. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get some instructions out there, and it will likely involve submission of online form of somehow. I mean, I don't know precisely all those details yet, but it will be simple. We'll keep it as simple as possible. And
Okay. We've had some questions about the licensing. So a grower license is $12.50, and that includes the right to sell it to a processor handler, just like a one-off sale. The processor handler is a separate license if you wanted to retail or market industrial hemp. but I don't think there's an actual true, like retailers, your CVS store and such, they're not going to be buying processor handler license from my understanding. So, that's still we need some clarification on exactly what's licensed there. But, and then the one thing I wanted to bring up with Gina is, we have a number of small farmers, like Mark Baldwin chimed in. It's like, a number of people have emailed me. I'm out, if you're growing 1 acre, 1, 2, 3 acres, you're just trying it out, which is what we need to do because we're still figuring this stuff out, the right genetic. Maybe we need a co-op or, something built. So we're going to look into that. As far as a path for the smaller growers still to be involved and not break the bank, because it shouldn't cost, especially if you wanted to, I've met farmers down in Tennessee that with 3 acres, they were fully vertically integrated with products, and they had bath bombs and tinctures and salves and everything. And you can do all that from 3 acres. And they employed, 3 or 4 people, but, to have that cost of, nearly $3,000 right off the block for licensing is prohibitive. It's going to keep some people out of venturing into this risky, it's a risky business. There's just too much risk.
Yeah, and Dave, if it's all right, I'll jump in a little bit here. I mean, I think you're hitting on a lot of great points and questions that, your viewers and folks around the industry and even across the country are asking of themselves right now too. And, we are going to be continuing to evolve this as the industry evolves as well. And the legislature is well aware that, this is a quickly innovating industry that wants to abide by laws and wants answers for parts of the industry as it continues to grow. I mean, things are moving very quickly, and in my years working in the legislature, I've never seen anything like it. So it's exciting and fascinating, but it creates its own set of challenges and hurdles, and all bits and pieces of legislation moving forward here. And I don't think we're going to be seeing. Actually, I know we're not going to be seeing any more movement on hemp legislation moving until sometime early next year, where we're going to be looking at some of those broader industry questions. For what we've done right now, I think we've had a lot of success legislatively with what Gina was talking about through Senate Bills 850 and 852, which gave those bits and pieces, which enabled us to submit a state hemp plan for approval. But there's a lot of work yet to be done, and certainly a lot more opportunities for collaboration and coordination.
Do you think I know she was saying you don't really want to get state or federal money involved because there's a possibility you could lose it at some point and then have to cut back. But maybe for the next year or two, do you think the politicians might take a look at, we understand this is a nascent industry. Some of these costs are just way too much for a small farmer to bear. So therefore, we're going to give you subsidies or whatever, to help with that, or have them pay for the license. I'm just throwing out ideas at this point, but some way of priming the pump, as it were, so you can really get this industry going.
Yeah, and Mike, certainly anything's possible. What we're seeing right now, we're seeing challenging budget conversations that have had to be going on, especially, with declining revenues resulting from coronavirus here, which, unfortunate as it may be, that's the reality for right now. And I think, with new people potentially coming into the legislature, things as always, they continue to move forward and evolve. So it's always worth having that discussion again. But for right now, what we've been hearing from our legislative folks is that, the program needs to be self-sufficient, and we've got to make sure that we prove that we've got those resources too, just to give the USDA what it needs.
Yeah, was it discussed at all, like a fee-based, where you get billed when they come out to test your crop, you get billed when you license, instead of these arbitrary numbers, that we went from $100 to grow to $1,250. I mean, that's, I understand the need to fund it, but maybe there's a better way to do this where
monthly billing or something. Maybe you could break up that license fee every month. You pay a portion of it so that that would be easier for farmers to handle. I don't know. What do you think?
Dave, just a quick, and Jennifer's asking, is there a
Yes,
call-in
yes.
number that Gina can use?
Perhaps.
Should be on the link. There's all those call-in numbers. Why don't you work with that, and we'll continue on with some other stuff here then. So, I'm sorry. So we talked about the fee base, which sounds like a good way to get this, keep it going for the entrepreneurs, the smaller guys, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a big farmer to them, $3,000 might not be a big deal, but you know, you have a small operation, Blaine. I mean, that's a big chunk of dough, right?
You know, you got to pass the cost on somewhere. So it's either got to come from my pocket or from the pocket when you sell the product, which is true. So Heather, your question, does dwelling include greenhouse micro hemp? So the greenhouse is not considered a dwelling, but if you're talking about doing like a solarium on the back of the house and growing it in there, well, I guess I'll let Gina correct that, but I would say that yes, that would probably be considered a dwelling if you're living in that house.
Well, maybe if you had a door from the outside going into the solarium, I don't know. But again, that would be a Gina question.
Yeah, but these are things. Well, a great question, Heather. We'll just have to work through these things as we move forward with the program for sure. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see, Clyde. Dave, you covered that with Clyde. There was a question about, does the property, where's it at here?
Oh, she's back.
Well, there we go. Hey, Gina. So does the
Hey there.
property number from the tax record meet the requirement for property description? I would think so, Clyde, that would probably cover that. With that. Let's see.
Let's ask the solarium question since Gina's back.
Well, let's let her complete her her presentation first, and then we'll get into questions for her.
Okay.
I know she's got a lot more stuff to cover. So.
Yeah, so, and I have no idea why it's happening. There's kind of cloudy out there. I don't know what it is, but so at any rate, the last point that I wanted to share regarding sample collection is that a sample collection fee will be charged. That's in the law, but it will not exceed the cost of collecting the sample. Again, this is a matter of the user fee, the fee needing to support the staff that are coming out and collecting the sample. And as everybody knows, that was not required in the original law, which had the original $100 fee and no sample collection fee. All right, so I'm going to move on now to sample testing and then harvesting. So MDARD's Giggly Lab is going to continue to be the regulatory lab that we'll use for that regulatory sample. Growers can continue to use any private laboratory that they choose to sort of keep track of and know what your THC levels are throughout the growing season. So no change in MDARD's lab. We're going to continue to test for total THC on a dry weight basis. Again, that's no change for us. Your results are going to be shared by email. No change there. But what your results are going to include now is an acceptable THC level, which basically means that we will have incorporated a measure of uncertainty or a margin of error, if you will, into your results. Our laboratory has identified that margin of error is going to be 0.06. So that means we'll be looking at 0.36% as being a compliance rate for THC levels. Once you receive your compliant test results, you'll have to harvest within 15 days. No change there for us. And if your hemp acreage cannot be harvested within 15 days, if there's simply too much to do, we have clarified in the law that you are able to basically submit another sample. And then assuming that comes back compliant, that would reset the 15-day window for 15 days from then. If there are no non-compliant test results, number one, retesting is no longer going to be allowed. That's not allowed in the federal rules. So you're not going to be able to submit second or third retests. Destruction, again, at this time is the only other option for non-compliant hemp. However, what we've done is we've included in the law what approved destruction methods would be. And they're realistic for agricultural situations and include things like plowing, mulching, disking, composting, mowing, shredding, deep burial, or burning. So, if you've got ag equipment and, obviously, that obviously is going to allow you to use that equipment and dispose of that crop using those methods. We are going to require that a notice be submitted to the department at least 48 hours before destroying the hemp. And so we'll likely develop a form for that you guys will have to probably submit to a standard email box. And basically we'll be looking for total acreage disposed of, the method of destruction, and the date that you've destroyed your crop. MDARD would always have the right to come out and observe destruction activities, but that's not something that we are requiring. Another thing that's new for growers, and this is so that we can do what MDARD is required to do. There's very specific reporting requirements in the federal rules, and that's going to require MDARD to submit an annual report to USDA of the total acreage planted in the state, the total acreage harvested in the state, and the total acreage disposed of. So that means what we've included in the law is so that we have that information that we need to report to the feds. Growers are going to need to provide that to us by November 15th of each year. So we'll get instructions out on how that needs to be done. A couple of last points that I'm just wanting to cover because we've made it all the way through now to either a compliant harvest or destruction. The last couple things are related to inspections and enforcement. The federal rules require MDARD to conduct a minimum number of inspections to ensure compliance with the law and with the plan. We have not determined how many inspections that's going to be. It will not be everybody in a single year, I can guarantee you that, but we will, during workload planning activities, take a look at the number of growers, divide that by available staff time, and we'll come up with a number that we try to aim to get at on an annual basis. And then lastly, as it relates to enforcement, the interim final rules have requirements for consideration for either negligent violations or violations with that have been conducted with a culpable mental state. And so if a grower commits a negligent violation, then what it requires us to do is develop a corrective action plan. And that's just basically some enforcement language that we work with the actual grower to say, okay, how are we going to fix this to make sure it doesn't happen in the future? And it will likely require certain responsibilities, certain timeframes for accomplishing the corrective action to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And there's administrative fine language in the law. That's not new. That's always been there. And it talks about administrative fines really ranging for, no less than $100 to no more than $500 for the first violation, $500 to $1,000 for the second violation, and $1,000 to $2,000 for a third violation. So obviously that violation fine can increase if you've committed the violation, obviously repeatedly for a few years or a few times in a row. So that was ridiculously fast and uncomfortable trying to figure, I'm sweating, I don't know about you guys, but trying to figure out how to get back on. I have no idea why that happened. Did it happen? Did you guys lose everybody or was it just me?
Oh, just you. You're on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but it's good.
If you plug a cable in directly to your router, it would be more reliable.
Oh, okay.
A network cable.
Okay. Alrighty then. So now that we've sucked up all the time with technology issues.
Yep.
You've done a fine job. So it's
Thank
good.
you.
I thought maybe you had satellite service in there.
I want to remind everybody let's not shoot the messenger here, okay? She has done a tremendous job for us in the last 2 years with getting this program up and running with a lot of help. And she is interpreting and for giving the laws the way the laws have been presented. It will be our opportunity to work with our legislators. If we feel that some of the issues are not where we'd like them to be, then that is our responsibility to take on. It is not to shoot the messenger here. There's some of the things that I'm not really happy with either, but we're going to work with what we got, and we're going to go ahead forward with this program, and we'll try to make it, a good program and have some leeway to it. So we'll work with Senator Lowers and others to get that fixed. So one of the things you can help us out with, okay, is you can contact iHemp Michigan and say, hey, these are some of the things that we like to see changed, and let us know what we need to be dealing with here, besides what we think too. Maybe you have some other issues there. Now, there are some more questions, Gina, but do you want to go into the processor side of this now, or do you want to maybe cover that on another show? I don't know. It's 1 o'clock now. I don't think people will mind staying, so I don't mind staying, but
well,
I think reported.
I think there's, I think our time would probably be best spent answering any questions based on what I just presented. Bottom line on the processor law is there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. I know that some of you have seen a draft. We are pausing, not hitting the brakes completely on that, but I want to ensure that we're taking the time that we need to do it correctly versus doing it fast. So we all knew from the very beginning we were operating under a different pace for the grower side, because originally we had to be in compliance by the end of October. That was not the case with the processor law. And the processing side is seriously, I mean, there's a lot more complex issues that we need to talk about. And we have a broader ability to establish the scope of the law that we believe is appropriate here in the state. The feds, USDA doesn't care about processing. From their perspective, their role ends when compliant hemp has been harvested within 15 days. So we know that we've got FDA out there who has, still trying to figure out what the appropriate regulatory pathway is for allowing hemp to be added to foods, drugs, and cosmetics. That's still pending. So there's a lot of complex issues that we need to evaluate, and we're going to take the appropriate amount of time to have those discussions, to get input from industry and make the changes that are appropriate for that side of the industry. So let's just stick with the grower stuff for now, if that's all right, and we can talk more about processor stuff.
To do the processors, we'll do another show on that.
Yeah,
Gina, do you see a path? I know we had this conversation briefly, but for someone that is going to grow a small amount of hemp and take it right to market, just a few acres, do you see a path for that in the licensing?
If they're going to grow and take it directly to market.
Mm-hmm.
Like farm market stuff, that kind of thing.
So what are they marketing?
See, well, I've met a number of businesses that have popped up that just grew a few acres, and they're making a full range of CBD products. They're doing they might be doing their own processing or having it processed and then make tinctures and such, and then they have, it's a vertically integrated business. But it just seems,
that's something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yep.
I mean, that's something a grower can do now, but they have to have the proper licensure. So if I'm going to grow hemp, I need to have a $1,250 grower registration. If I intend to market my hemp, I need to have a processor handler license, because that hasn't changed. The definition of process continues to be process, handle, broker, or market industrial hemp. Until we fix that in the law, that's still the requirement. So when I talked about regulatory scope of that side of the law, part of that discussion is, should this trickle all the way down to the retail level, which we know is unrealistic. It's not realistic for us to be out there policing every brick and mortar location or every web-based online place that is selling CBD products. So we really do need to ask that question: at what point does the license requirement stop? And until we make that change in the law, if you're marketing hemp, and that means any product that hemp can turn into, you have to have that license. So it exists today, Dave.
Are you talking about state law we need to get corrected for that, or
Correct.
amended for that? State law, not
Correct.
national, but state law.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep, that's in Public Act 641. That's
Okay.
still there.
we have a path to do that, so.
Right, and that's what, what Nathan and I will be working on in the future, with interested individuals. We'll try to keep, like individual groups small so that we can be productive and get certain topic areas addressed. But yeah, definitely if there are interested individuals working on any particular parts of the processor law, I'd love to know that. You can send me an email, and as we get to the point where we're going to be soliciting that input from industry representatives, you can be included in that discussion.
Well, iHemp Michigan certainly welcomes that opportunity to sit down with you guys and work through those issues. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of people that'll send us some good information today and things that they'd like to see addressed. So again, let's not shoot the messenger here. So
No. You guys have done a great job. We really appreciate you. It's a tough thing, it just feels that here we have an agricultural commodity and it's being treated as a drug, as a something that you can get in real trouble with, and it just doesn't feel right for the plant, but it'll change. It's just going to take some time.
Gina, let's go back to the grower part of this. So
Okay.
How long is I know there's some verbiage and I don't remember, but how long is the FBI background check good for before they can submit that?
You mean, how long they?
30 days, 60 days, 90 days from when they get. If you don't remember, it's fine.
I don't think we put anything in the law
Okay.
about that. So, I would think 60 days would be a pretty reasonable number, but I'll have to get back with you on that one, Blaine.
Okay.
I don't remember there being anything in the law, but obviously it has to be recent enough.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'll have to get back with you on that one.
So what people would want to get from the FSA office when you record your acres there to be a document would be it's called the FSA 578. It's actually what you certify your acres on and sign the form. So that would be the proper document to get requests to have on your file for this situation here. Any other questions we've got?
Well, the solarium question, I
Oh,
thought.
yeah. Good, thanks, Mike. So we have somebody that grows microgreens, let's say, and they have a little greenhouse on the back of their house, a little solarium on there, but it's connected to the house where they live. How would we treat that situation? Have you a dwelling or not?
Is there a door to the solarium outside of the house? Probably not, huh?
Well, that could be made maybe, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But basically what you don't want to do, you don't want to enter through a home, through a dwelling where somebody's living to be able to inspect any kind of hemp growing.
Right. I mean, that's really the intent. That's the intent. I mean, we'll always have to maybe deal with, unique circumstances like that on a case by case basis. But, it's being respectful of someone's privacy. I mean, I don't like strangers coming in my house any more than you guys are going to want that.
So hypothetically, if they had a door outside and they could come in through, your inspectors could come in through the door without going into the house, that would probably work for you guys?
I think that would meet the intent of what we're trying to accomplish. Yes.
And I think if you have those unique situations like that, I think when you apply for your license, the best time to address that would be at that point. Say, hey, this is what I have, this is what I got, and make sure right then that it's going to meet it. Don't pay for all this fee and do all this stuff and then find out later that it's an issue. So just take some pre-planning there. And if you're questioning it all, an email makes a real good situation there to clear up any confusion there.
Right.
Let's see, we answered Lori's question. Bob Moore put an interesting thing in here. He has a friend out in Kansas that makes a gas, if I'm saying that right, unit that can dispose of bad hemp. And so, Bob, we'll be talking to you a little bit. Maybe that's something we might want to cover at a later show sometime if there's something that can do that. So that's interesting there. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions that we've got out there?
No, I think we've hit it.
So I did want to mention one point. So USDA they've been great to work with, number one. Number two, they've been really spot on when they've committed to doing something. They've gotten it done in the time frame, for example, that they committed to getting something done. That was the case with the interim rules. And what they're saying now is that they expect that their final rules will be released sometime after the new year. They haven't got, nothing more specific than after the new year. So, we should all know that there could potentially be more changes to this program based on what those federal rules, the final rules, look like. Somebody mentioned it earlier that they're listening. They are listening to the comments that they are receiving. And this opportunity that happened a month or so ago when they reopened that public comment period, if you read that Federal Register notice, and hopefully you did, they were specifically looking for input in certain areas. And one of those areas was related to the destruction only option. They wanted to hear people's thoughts on whether or not non-compliant hemp could be remediated in any way, if it could be redirected in any way. So, so they're asking and they're listening. So hopefully a lot of you took advantage and provided some comments to USDA on that. We know that final rules will be coming out. Depending on what those final rules say, that could very well mean we need to go back into Public Act 137 now and make some changes, and then make some changes to the hemp plan. We won't know that until we see them. So more to follow on that.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that, we've been really upfront with the legislature on that, hey, these USDA interim rules are very much subject to change. So our legislative partners are primed and ready to roll as far as any potential updates that we need to look at in the future as well.
Excellent.
Yep.
You have two other questions that I have, real quick ones here.
Okay.
Any regulations or forms for sale of the hemp out of state, if we're going to move it out of state or do anything there? Anything you see have changed? I didn't see anything, but
there are no restrictions to moving product, to selling product out of state. There will likely be, we're going to come up with forms, bottom line, forms that you guys and gals will need to follow to meet some of the requirements that I've gone over. So there may very well be some sort of a record keeping form a template or whatnot that we provide to you to keep track of a sale like that. But there's no restrictions in terms of who you can sell it to, how much you can sell, you just need to have that proper licensure.
And then another one is on weights and measures. What regulations have to be followed? Now, I think when you put out the number 24 email, I think that covers a lot of it there, but maybe there you listed some stuff.
Yep, and I am not an expert on the department's weights and measures law. The whole reason that we provided that news release update was so that you could then reach out to the right people who can answer your questions regarding the other laws in the department. So I encourage you to go back and look at that. I think the program contact was Rob DeRubis. He would be the person that you would want to contact and ask any questions that you have related to weights and measures. And if I can spend one more minute, Blaine, I just wanted to let everybody know that, in the next, probably beginning sometime in November, it's my intention to provide a series of regulatory updates explaining in more detail what I've kind of quickly and with a lot of technology turmoil covered today. So this is at the end of the outreach and education that the department will put into educating everybody about the changes to the law, the changes to the program in our plan. So again, pay attention to your email. I promise you, you will not get an email every day like you get from Bath and Body Works, but we'll probably get an email out once every 2 weeks at the most. And we're gonna queue those up so that they're not overwhelming. We might target a topic at a time. For example, we might have one release that's completely dedicated to how to request a sample and everything that happens from the time we arrive on your property to when you get your results back. So just know that that's coming. Just haven't had enough hands to get it done at this time. So more will definitely follow that will help everybody understand what the new requirements are and what you need to do to comply.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again very much for all you do and for what you've provided here. And like you say, this isn't the end of this, folks. We'll have a lot more information out, and MDART will too, to help us work through this. Their intent is not to be fining all of us and throwing us in jail, and
No.
this program work too. So
Yeah.
that is it. But they got to have something behind it if you don't play fair. So
Yeah, they gotta color within the lines. We just need different lines. That's all.
can't even make good stick figures, so it doesn't matter to me. Let's see. So Dave, I know we're way over on time here, but let's just get this. Let's do this. Let's talk about the expo a little bit. We've made really, really great progress on this expo, and we do have a website up. Dave, can you show that website?
You bet.
And, some of the links are live, some of them aren't yet. We're still tweaking.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but the web address is midwestihempexpo.com. By this weekend, I'll have everything caught up. I need more hands too. And so our theme is a more sustainable world. And we have, that's the old one.
That's the old one.
What's
going to happen this year? I'll give you the overview picture. We can only have a maximum of 500 people at a time in the Lansing Center. So it's going to be a much more kind of scaled down version. Great content, which is going to be the key to the whole thing, but it will be a little bit smaller event just because we have to have it that way. So the cost is going to be is normally $3.99, but with the iHemp with any membership, we've talked about this in the Midwest area. And early bird discount, you'll be able to get it for $250. 2 days, like I say, a great lineup. We've got some of the speakers here. There's some of them that we're still vetting out yet to make sure that that's what we want to do. Again, the theme here is sustainable future, sustainable world. And we're really making this a lot business to business kind of thing, letting everybody know where we're going in the future. We're bringing business in to show them what we can do with this product and to get business going here in Michigan, because that's the bottom line. We can all grow this stuff that we know, but if we can't sell it for anything, then what use is this and what good is this? So that's what we're striving for with this expo going on. Dave, can you maybe scroll through there a little bit? There is also a survey that's on this. If you see in the very top, it says 2001 pre-expo survey. We'd sure like everybody to help fill that out for us. We've had a number of them come back. It's helping us kind of direct where we're going with the expo on it. The Radisson Hotel will be the hotel that is connected to the event center, the St. Lansing Center, that we will be using again. And we are at this point planning some kind of evening activity for Friday.
Is there a hotel special conference rate?
Yeah, there is. And we'll have that up. You can click on the link, or you can call the hotel and you'll be able to get that special rate for that. Yeah. We have invited MDART, and they have agreed to be part of our expo, and we're excited for that. We thank you for doing that as well for that. One of the fun events that we're going to have this year is going to be the Hempy Awards. So the Hempy Awards are going to be for a number of different products. Let me see if I can bring my screen up here. I don't want to bring my screen up, I just want to bring my information up. So the Hempy Awards are going to cover, we're going to have photos are going to be one thing that's going to be in there that we can do. And that particular category will have a People's Choice Award in it as well. Any food products that you're making incorporating industrial hemp or industrial hemp on its own. Personal care products will be another one. Bath bombs, soaps, lotions, salves, tinctures, anything related to pets, pet food, treats, or health toys. We're going to have a miscellaneous category, and I'll come back to that in a minute. We're also going to have an innovations category. So this category would be for any product, person, thing, equipment, whatever that has been really instrumental in moving the hemp industry forward. And that'll be kind of an essay situation. You'll nominate somebody or yourself, and you can brag on all you want to, and we'll have an award for that. And then also anything in textiles will be awarded there. So that we're going to do that. The deadline to submit information for that is going to be December the 12th. And then the judging will take place December the 19th. So if by chance we have to go to a all virtual, then we'll still do these awards. And part of the membership, part of the coming to the live one, if you go to that, that also includes your virtual, which we're going to have a few weeks later after the live one, where we're going to bring all the content plus more content will be available on the virtual. So that'll be available. The Hempy Awards, except for the miscellaneous category, are really meant for Midwest area people. And again, we talked about that being Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. So only anybody can enter any of them, but the winners have to be from the Midwest area in those, except for the miscellaneous category, which could be anything, any product, anything else from anywhere. And then we'll have an award for that as well. But that's the only award, that's the only category that would be for people outside of the Midwest area. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. There will be we'll have really cool plaques that we'll have out. There'll be $100 for first place, $50 for the second and third place. And everyone gets great recognition because we're going to showcase the products at the expo so everybody can see them. Plus we'll have them on the website so everybody can see who entered and what they entered as well.
And we'll promote them on my various websites as well.
Thanks, Mike.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Is there a fee? There's going to be a little fee involved for it. So for any hemp related products, I'll call hemp stuff, it's $50 for the first entry, $25 for each entry after that. The photos is $25 for a maximum of 3 entries, for 3 photos you can put in for that. The nominations, the innovation nominations are free, doesn't cost anything. And so other details we'll have up on the website for that as well.
Okay.
I think
All right.
it's time.
Yeah, we should
Wayne.
try to wrap it up.
All right. Okay. I was going to skip it.
The highlight of the show is coming now.
Absolutely.
Here, Nate. So,
Without a doubt. You know what? We got to have some music. I got to get some music.
walk-on music, right?
Rocky or what? Yeah.
So I got a great new hemp cookbook this week, and we're going to try to have the authors on at some point in time. We've emailed them on that, but this one is from Winter. It's winter squash with hemp nut filling.
Ooh.
Now it says extra virgin olive oil to start with, so we're going to replace that with some hemp seed oil. But 1 small yellow onion diced, 1 or 2 cloves fresh garlic, sea salt, a Granny Smith apple peeled, cored, and diced, a stalk of celery diced, grated zest of fresh lemon, 1 to 3 teaspoons, a cup of golden raisins, 1/3 of a cup of shelled hemp seeds, 1 tablespoon of hemp seed oil, 2 to 3 sprigs fresh parsley minced, and 2 winter squash halved and seeded. Good choices are the acorn, butternut, pumpkins, butternut squash there. And the directions on here, doesn't take too long, about 40 minutes to cook it, and voila. So this would be a great one to add to your holiday meals coming up in the future. So and with that, I am done unless anybody else has anything else good for the cause.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Nate.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. We'll see you all next week. Same time, same bat channel.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right.
Peace and love.